and that you're here. It's a good group, an interesting bunch of people have come to join. I'll say a few words in Hebrew. We'll give a little short introduction, then we'll get into the talk with Daniel. אז קודם כל, זה מאוד סימבולי שהאירוע הזה קורה בשבוע הזה, כשאנחנו רואים את מצב הדמוקרטיה בישראל, אנחנו באמת זקוקים למשהו אחר, ואני מקווה שאנחנו קצת נדבר על המשהו אחר הזה היום. אבל כל זה לא היה אפשרי, וכל הסדרה הזאת שאנחנו פותחים בה, סדרה של מפגשים עם מומחים מהארץ ומהעולם, שנועדה לחקור את השיטות והגישות החדשניות.
רק אני לא שומעת?
לא, קפא לך האינטרנט?
הראשונה בישראל.
רגע, היה לך איזשהו נתק ולא שמענו אותך.
סליחה? אז קצת אמרתי שכל זה לא היה קורה ללא האמונה בדרך והמחויבות של קבוצה של אזרחים שהתגבשה בקורונה, ושמנו כמטרה להקים את אספת האזרחים הראשונה בישראל. ואתם תפגשו את חלק מהפעילים היום בערב. ובראש ובראשונה לאירוע הזה, שני ראשי החץ של היוזמה הזאת, דבי וכרמל. דבי תהיה גם מנחה היום בערב, וכרמל מסייעת בהגנת הגבולות מטרולים, ועוד כמה דברים. ובאמת תודה לכם מאוד מאוד על הזמן והטרחה, ולמורין ולירז ממרכז השל, על התמיכה האיתנה והרציפה שזה יכול לקרות, והערכה גדולה גם לרומי מקרן היינריך בל, שנותנים לנו במרכז השל את הגיבוי והתמיכה שמאפשרת לנו לקחת רעיונות משוגעים, שמדי פעם גם משפיעים על המציאות. ועכשיו לדבי.
אז דיוויד, רק אתה יכול להעלות רגע את השקף, ומי שהצטרף ולא שמע, אז נשמח אם תוכלו בשביל דניאל לרשום בצ'אט מאיפה אתם מגיעים ומה הביא אתכם לשיחה היום, ואם אתם שייכים לאיזשהו ארגון, אם תוכלו לרשום גם את השם של הארגון, וכמובן באנגלית. דיוויד, אתה מעלה את השקף?
כן, אני העליתי את השקף הלא נכון.
אז אנחנו רק רוצים לספר לכם בעצם מי אנחנו מאחורי היוזמה הזאת. יופי. מעולה. אז בעצם זה אחד מתוך 4 מפגשים שאנחנו הולכים לקיים. המפגש הבא שלנו יהיה עם רונן גופר במאי, אחרי זה יש לנו מפגש עם גרהם סמית, ואז עם ג'אנט הרטקארט מאוסטרליה. אנחנו עוד נדבר על זה בהמשך. אז בעצם, מי אנחנו ומה עשינו עד עכשיו? נפגשנו, כמו שדיוויד אמר, בזמן הקורונה, עשו איזשהו וובינר, אני בעצם הצטרפתי, ובעקבות הוובינר הזה על אספות אזרחים, קיימנו יום למידה בפורמט של Dragon Dreaming, ומתוך הפעילות הזאת ייסדנו איזשהו גרעין של אנשים שהם מחויבים לרעיון הזה של אספת אזרחים בישראל, ואנחנו נפגשים מדי שבועיים, זה הצוות היגוי שלנו. אנחנו כתבנו כמה מסמכים שהם בעצם הרעיון של כל הסיפור הזה של אספות אזרחים, למדנו המון, דיברנו עם די הרבה אנשים מרחבי העולם שחלקם תכירו במפגשים, חלקם אולי בהמשך נוכל להכיר לכם, אבל אנחנו כבר די לימודי, לא ניסיון, אבל אנחנו צברנו די הרבה ידע ויצרנו קשרים עם האנשים שהתנסו בזה. התחלנו גם בתהליך של גיוס כספים, זאת אומרת עוד לא גייסנו, אבל אנחנו בהחלט כבר התחלנו את התהליך, וכמובן שאנחנו נערכים ליעד שלנו, שזה להקים מועצה ציבורית ואספה אזרחית ראשונה בישראל במהלך השנה הזאת. אז ואנחנו נשמח מאוד 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 אם בעקבות המפגשים האלה חלקכם תתלוו ותצטרפו אלינו למיזם הזה. אני מחזירה אליך דיוויד.
Okay, Daniel, thanks for your patience, and I hope your Hebrew is getting better now.
It improved already. I can say achat, shtaim, shalosh.
I met Daniel in 2019. I spent some time in Potsdam, Germany, at the IASS, the institute that Daniel works at, and I remember our first meeting in the grassy courtyard of IASS. Daniel and I had a talk about things that I was interested in, citizens' participation. And I remember he told me about this idea of citizens' assembly. And I quite couldn't get it, actually. He said, random selection of citizens. I said, what? And he said, yes, that's how it works. That's the most important thing, that there's random selection in mini public. And it took me a while to actually get my head around it. And I think Daniel was patient with me, as he will be with all of us, and portray some of the things that he's experienced, and he has a lot of experience in this field, particularly the case from Germany, but not just. He'll tell us about a lot of other things that are going on. Hold on. Did I stop share this thing? I did, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Nothing on.
And a couple of things about Daniel, the things that he's particularly been doing in his work. He's been at the ISS since 2016, on the co-creation and policy advisory project. He's a graduate in public administration and governance. He has worked as a facilitator for many years in participatory programs and processes all over the place. And we're really, really happy to have you here, Daniel. And the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, David. I feel really honored to speak to all of you in Israel today. And yeah, it's just great that technology allows us to be together, even despite all Corona pandemic and distance between us. Yeah, David said already who I am, where I work. I just want to stress once again, I'm both a practitioner and a scientist. I worked for quite a while as a participation project facilitator, if you want to say it like that. And but now I'm mainly a scientist here at the IASS. But at our institute here, the IASS, we do not only conduct research in a classical manner, but we engage ourselves in supporting and creating action around topics of sustainable development in a broadest sense. So we call this approach transformative, which means that we want to do research that is contributing more or less directly. Nice. I've never been crashed.
What? Who can explain this?
צריך לעשות סיסמה לזום הזה. אם אתם יכולים להוסיף סיסמה עדיף וייכנסו מחדש.
מה, שניכנס מחדש? אני לא מצליחה להוציא אותם.
אבל הציעו עם סיסמה, מה זה מה שהוא...
לייצר קישור, לייצר קישור מחדש ולהוסיף סיסמה.
להוסיף סיסמה.
נראה לי שאנחנו בסדר.
לא, ייכנסו עוד פעם, זה לא...
אני לא אתן להם להיכנס.
נראה לי שהוצאנו אותם, רק את האנשים שאנחנו מכירים אנחנו ניתן להיכנס.
כן, צריך לעשות approval של הוסט כדי להיכנס, כאילו לדרוש...
יכול להיות שהוצאתי כמה אנשים שהיו אמורים להיות פה.
יכול להיות, גם אני הוצאתי.
אני רואה כמה אנשים שאני לא מזהה, אז לא נכניס אותם. האייפון וה-31 לא נכניס אותם. יש פה מישהו שנכנס.
אני מציע גם למנוע את האפשרות לעשות share screen מניסיון קודם בכנס כזה. התפרצות לכנס כזה.
אז זה אני אעשה.
מה שיש לנו פה ב-waiting room הם בטוח טרולים.
כן, איזה קטע, איך זה קורה?
אבל הם עדיין בפנים, יש פה...
הם עדיין רואים אותם.
הם רודפים אחרי מאיה יעקובס.
דבי, יש פה בחור בשם ניים, שהוא נמצא אצלנו.
אצלי זה בדרך כלל רק עם פורנו הם עושים, לא עם מוזיקה.
רגע, יש פה... אוקיי, אבל אני לא מצליחה, איזה קטע.
זהו, יש כאלה שאני לא מצליחה.
הוצאתי גם אייפד.
Unbelievable. This is how it happens, eh?
Crazy.
תעשו בינתיים לינק חדש במקביל שאפשר להפיץ אותו אולי.
רגע, נראה לי שאנחנו בסדר.
אני בינתיים אכין, במקרה שזה יקרה עוד פעם, אני אכין לינק חדש ונשלח לכולם. אבל כדאי שאת הסיסמה, לינק החדש שצריך להגיד עכשיו בעל פה, אם זה בצ'אט, אז... אם זה בצ'אט, אז לא יראה. אנחנו יכולים לשלוח את זה באימייל ששלחנו לכולם, נכון דבי?
כן.
אוקיי, אז אני אכין לינק נוסף ב...
אבל אני פשוט כל הזמן פשוט עושה רימוט. אוי, רגע.
יש מישהו בפנים פה.
שתפו רק את דניאל בתוכניות, נראה לי שמישהו, יש לו מבט כזה שלא בדיוק יודע מה העניינים.
Daniel, we're talking about what we're going to do right now, and we're going to probably set up an alternative link.
Okay.
We won't, we'll pass on to everyone by email.
Okay.
But Daniel, it does mean that this meeting's important.
Yeah, I saw the post by Colin, yeah, probably.
ודייוויד שיהיה waiting room שרק ההוסט יכול להכניס אנשים, שלא ייכנסו, וגם עם עצמה כמובן.
כן, כן, אוקיי. אז Daniel, just keep going and I'll set up an alternative in the meanwhile.
Okay. Well, yeah, what we're doing here is transformative research, and that means that we want to try to contribute more or less directly to the great transformation towards sustainable or more sustainable societies here at the IASS. Yeah, what IASS means, probably you've seen it already or looked it up. It's Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies. Going to be on my slides in a minute. Yeah, actually I will try to start those slides right now. You can all see it. Okay. Does that work? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I can see it.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah, it also works for me. I just have to sort it out here. I have two screens, so I want the slides there. Okay. Yes. So I titled the session Deliberative Democracy in Germany, Mini-Publics on the local and on the federal level, because I brought two stories tonight, or yeah, it's not evening yet, from a local case in Germany that I was able to witness, and the federal level where we had mini publics happening. Yes, but before I start with those cases, I'd like to clarify with you what we're talking about when I'm writing mini publics. It's for a reason that I didn't put citizens assemblies or citizens council there in the title, because all these belong to a broader family of public participation processes that are possible. And this broader family is labeled mini publics, which means I have the oldest definition I found on the slide here. A mini public is an assembly of citizens that is demographically representative of the larger population, brought together to learn and to deliberate on a topic in order to inform public opinion and decision making. So Robert Dahl, German scientist, formulated this like 4 or 5 decades ago, and since then we have seen quite a lot happening in the realm of mini publics. And I have here also a couple of examples where mini publics, or how mini publics are being used these days. We find things like citizens' juries, especially in the US. We have the famous planning cell that has been developed in Germany and used a lot here. We have consensus conferences, a bit of a different approach as well. Deliberative polls, as they're being used in the US as well by James Fishkin, who developed this one. Then we have citizens' assemblies, which is also one of the examples that I brought today, and citizens' councils, same here, one example I've got with me. Then we have citizens' initiative review, climate assemblies, where we have a topic focus for the application of mini public. So it's a lot going on there, and this list is far from being complete. I just wanted to make sure that you see there's so much possible and so much happening at the moment in terms of formats that try to enrich democratic processes by the help of randomly selected citizens. This is the backbone of all these examples that I've listed here. Okay, but now I'd like to show you the agenda, what I've planned together with Debbie and David for today. As I said, I brought 2 stories. The first one is on citizens' councils as they happened in Berlin's district of Tempelhof-Schönberg just like 2 years ago. And I was able to witness the whole development, and I will tell you how it all came about and what it entails, the model that was used there. Then we have a round of questions and discussion, and afterwards, if we still have time, we can look into the second story, mini public on the national level, that we had in Germany in 2019 for the first time ever. And now currently we just had the second one on the national level, also really interesting processes, and I'd also like to tell you how it all came about and how it worked. And then again, questions and discussion, and maybe also some summarizing words by me. Okay. Let me start with the first one. In 2019 and 2020, I had the chance to witness how 7 mini publics came into action in Berlin's district of Tempelhof-Schönberg. So Berlin has 12 districts, and this is one of them. And the mini public model that was used there is so-called citizens' councils according to the Vorarlberg model. So Vorarlberg is a region in Austria, in the Alps, and this model that has been used there has been developed there and seen widespread adoption across several German-speaking countries, especially Switzerland, Austria, southern Germany, and the German-speaking part of Italy as well. But before I will explain how this special model works and what it entails, what its characteristics are, I want to quickly tell you how it all came about in Berlin, because this is really remarkable and also important when you're thinking, or when you guys are maybe thinking about initiating something similar. That story is somewhat unusual. Unusual because it was not the classical top-down approach. It was a bottom-up idea. There was a small local action group consisting of 5 elderly ladies that teamed up after the election of Donald Trump and the rise of right-wing populism also in Germany. And they said, we want to improve democracy as we feel it in our everyday surrounding. And so they were looking out for inspiration all over Germany and across, also in Austria, and heard about this Citizens Council model as it was used in Austria, in Vorarlberg a lot, and for various topics. And yeah, since I had just written my master's thesis about this model, we eventually got into contact, and yeah, together we started to explore the tool and started to develop like a strategy of how the group might maybe be able to see the model being adopted in their district of Tempelhof-Schönneberg. This is important, this phase, to develop that strategy, because a citizens council can only be effective when it's been tasked by those whose action it should eventually enrich after it's done, or with the recommendations that come out of this process. So we started to get in contact with all the factions of the local parliament in Tempelhof-Schönneberg and presented the model. And that was a great success. We got an appointment with the district mayor just after a couple of weeks. So the group was able to present the idea or the model to her, and the mayor, who had never heard of the idea to use a group of, or to invite a group of randomly selected citizens to give advice to her, she said, well, that sounds really, really interesting. And she liked the idea because she said that would be an opportunity for her to hear unfiltered what citizens actually think. And as citizens who are not invested in any organized interest groups necessarily, but just get together for the sake of for the sake of random selection. And so the district mayor said, well, let's have, let's start working together and found a joint project group. And yeah, just to clarify how the model could be used in Tempelhof-Schönneberg, how it could be financed, which is always the most important question at the beginning, and also what a suitable question might be for using such a mini public in the district. And the group that she brought together consisted of herself, the mayor. She actually attended every meeting of the group. She brought people from the district administration with her, which is really, really important because someone has to organize it. And she also got members of different factions of the local parliament in, as well as the 5 ladies, of course, who initiated the idea. And I was also able to join this group. Yeah, and within little more than a year, the group succeeded collaboratively and managed to get funded get funded by the city of Berlin with 150,000 euros, which was such a great success. We couldn't have thought of it, that it's even possible. But there was a special pot in the city budget assigned to democratic experiments within the city, and we managed to get that money. And this enabled the joint project group and the mayor of Tmepelhof-Schönenberg to fund not only one citizens council, as it was initially the idea, but to have one for each of the 7 sub-districts of Tmepelhof-Schönenberg. So Berlin has 12 districts, Tmepelhof-Schönenberg is one of them, and that district still has 7 sub-districts. And with that money, we were able to run 7 citizens councils within just around about a year. And these citizens councils happened in 2019 and 2020. And I told you this story because it's really remarkable. Usually when you have a bottom-up group, a local action group, they try to go the pressure way, try to create as much popularity or visibility for their idea and try to put pressure on the mayor. But this group didn't. They went the cooperative way and managed to work together with the district mayor. And this was the question that they came up with to be posed to the citizens councils of all 7 sub-districts. How can we make sure that our district stays worth living, and how can we create the future together? So we might want to discuss later on whether that's a good question or not, because it is a very broad question, but it was consciously taken because it enabled them to have the process more or less staying the same for all 7 sub-districts, and still get a very fine-grained and comparable, comprehensive picture of what the people really care about the most. So an open question that really enabled the people to just say whatever they feel is necessary to do. But let's have more reflections on that later on. Now I'd like to, of course, explain you what characterizes such a citizens council according to the Vorarlberg model as it was used here in Berlin Tmepelhof-Schönenberg. So the first thing, of course, is the meeting of those randomly selected citizens. In the case of the Vorarlberg model, it's just 12 to 15 people that are being selected from the public register. They get a letter of invitation and are invited to get there, of course. And that's also a point for discussion always. You don't just invite 12 to 15 people, but here in Tmepelhof-Schönenberg, we had to invite like 500 people to get a group of that size. Then, of course, you need time. In the Vorarlberg model, it's 1.5 days, and you need skilled facilitators, a team of 2 people, and of course, the question, I showed you the question already, what it was here. The second thing that is really special about the Vorarlberg model, which allows it to produce meaningful results within just 1.5 days, is the so-called dynamic facilitation method that is being used at the core interaction mode. So it's the how the people are interacting within that citizens council. The method is a rather strict frame of rules that always just allows one person to talk at a time, while all the others are basically forced to listen. So, and the speaking person always just speaks directly to the facilitator, who listens thoroughly and records what is being said on one of 4 flip charts. And these 4 flip charts are titled in a way that they will summarize content of the same quality. So we have one flip chart that's titled with challenges and questions, one with solutions and ideas, one with concerns and objections, and one with information and perspectives, or whatever people think is really important to know about it, or about the topic, about a question or something that they say. Yeah, this way, dynamic facilitation is like a pulled handbrake to the group's discussion. And it allows for very deep insights into what people really think, what is on people's heart, what they really want to say, and maybe never could because they've been interrupted. And it allows for a collection of very different reflections of the participants. And at the same time, it does involve very little contentual steering by the facilitators. They basically only follow the energy of the group and the energy of the participants, which is also the reason why it's called dynamic facilitation, because people don't have to connect to what the previous person has said before and go down a road like a red thread. It can be really chaotic in the way that people bring themselves and their thoughts in, but the flip charts help to still keep the overview. That live recording allows to connect to any point at any time that's been made earlier. And yeah, don't worry if you don't fully get the method. Many people actually need to see it live or even experience it to fully understand it, how it works. It's just important to note here to see that it matters a lot how a randomly selected group of citizens interacts, because it is one key distinction between different conceptions of mini-publics, how people actually interact within it. It's not just you randomly select a group of people, bring them together in a room, and you wait for the white smoke, like in the Vatican when they select a pope. No, it really depends what's happening within that black box of a mini-public, and this is the case for the citizens' councils according to the Vorarlberg model. But there's a third characteristic of this model, and that is its embeddedness within certain preceding and following steps. So in this process overview, a very simple one, you see the Citizens Council, where the people interact with this dynamic facilitation method on top of here, but it's things happening beforehand and things happening afterwards. And eventually these things form a circle at the end. So let me guide you through this. Citizens Council doesn't just happen and select its question its own, but it needs it needs connection to political and administrative circumstances and the system surrounding. So here in Tembelhof-Schönenberg, it was the mayor who is initiating the process. She says, I want to invite these people, and this is my question that I'm posing to these people and asking them for their advice, for their recommendations to it. Then people work for 1.5 days and present their results, or it's not results, it's recommendations. Important to have that differentiation there. They present their recommendations within a public event where they hand it over to the caller, so to the mayor. And but it's not just a presentation, just like I'm doing it right now. One person speaks and the other one takes it over. But the public event is also designed in a way that everyone who attends it is able to interact with the participants of the Citizens Council, with the participants of the elected council and the mayor and everyone she brings along, like people from public administration. So it's a first event where really people can think together about these recommendations, and it's a first focal point from where multiplication can happen into the broader society. And it's also a really good event where media can connect to. So you can have TV teams there who do interviews with participants of the Citizens Council or with the mayor and stuff like that. After this event, the recommendations are being taken into a resonance group, usually consisting of people from public administration, from all the branches that are being touched by the recommendations. And so they have a look at it and say, well, how do we understand this? How can we connect it with work that is already ongoing? How can we maybe initiate new things, new projects from it? Usually also this resonance group is attended by 1 or 2 people from the Citizens Council, just to give guidance, give clarity if questions arise. And very important, this resonance group is being set up beforehand, before the whole circle starts. After they've talked about it and thought about how what could be done with those recommendations, they forward it for decision making to the mayor or the elected council, and they give feedback on the use of the recommendations to the participants of the Citizens Council. And that is basically when the first circle is closed, when the participants see what has actually happened to the things that we came up with. And that's so probably the most important thing, to have this coherent framework that helps the Citizens Council to actually have any impact or any effect on the broad society, on politics and administration. And here I've got a couple of impressions just to give you a glance how it looks like. Here we have one group that is currently in one of these dynamic facilitation sessions. You see the facilitator taking notes. It's very intense, not just for the people who speak, but also for the people who listen, because you constantly reconfigure the arguments and content that you want to bring through. Maybe thinking is actually a democratic quality, a democratic skill that is far underrated. Not thinking, listening, like thoroughly listening is really, really important. And this method, just facilitates that really nicely. But of course, they don't just work in the circles, they also work in small groups to condense what's coming out of these small group discussions, and to come up with recommendations at the end that are really on point. But it's important, it's always the citizens, the randomly selected citizens, who are determining the content. It's not the facilitators or anyone else who is doing like this comprehension work. And then at the end, they all together decide on whether they want to have a recommendation been given out to the mayor or not. So it's always they try to have like a consensual decision. But they don't use just like hands up or hands down if you like it or not. It's an interaction there as well that makes sure that everyone can go with it. This is an impression of the first presentation event. You see the members of the Citizens Council on stage presenting their results, and a lot of people attended this first one. And you see they are grouped around group tables where they later on discussed with the members of the Citizens Council and politics and administration what they've just heard. Yeah, last slide for this example, I have noted down a couple of capabilities and limitations of citizens' councils according to this Vorarlberg model, because it can't do everything. And it's really important to see what its limitations are. What you can do with a citizens' council, nevertheless, is given really meaningful recommendations to politicians and public administration that come directly from the citizenry and are not filtered like you get it when a organized interest group steps on your door and says, we want to have this, we want to have that. Citizens Council can also create visibility for issues that are really relevant to the public, also issues that are sometimes not on the radar of the elected officials. It can activate a very diverse group of people to engage with politics, and of course be the starting point of collaboration and co-creation among citizens who participated either in the Citizens Council or in the presentation event, but also between politics or administration and citizens. And that's really where it gets interesting. So what's happening afterwards? But what a Citizens Council, of course, cannot do is substitute elected bodies. It's not better as representative democracy. It's an add-on to representative democracy. It can potentially make the work of representative democracy better, but it can't substitute it. Citizens Council can also not make decisions just because it's not legitimated for it. It can't replace experts. Instead, it's possible to integrate experts in the process and be made possible to make expertise the base from where citizens work further. And it can't make it obsolete to talk to organized interests and all those usual suspects that always knock on the door. Okay. Yeah, that was like the first example I wanted to tell you, or the first story I wanted to tell you from Berlin here in my neighborhood.
Shall we open up for a bit of Q&A if people need?
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Something wasn't clear. משהו לא היה ברור בגלל האנגלית אולי, הבהרה, or questions about the process? Yeah?
I would like to ask, please. First of all, thank you, Daniel. It's really nice. I would like to ask you about the randomly people that are coming there.
Yep.
What is randomly? Like, how do you choose randomly?
Yeah, well, random selection is a really important feature of it, but it's also a great challenge because you can't force people to come. It's randomly selected, but people come on a voluntary basis. How you can operationalize that is you have different possibilities there. In Germany, on the local level, the best data set from where you can draw people is the public register. So if you move somewhere in Germany, you have to go to the town hall and register. And they have your address, they have your name, and a couple more things about you. They know which gender you are, for example, and your age. And that's a really good data set because it entails almost everyone. Besides, unfortunately, people like homeless people are not on there. But you could also use different tools at hand. For example, in France, where they had the Convention Citoyenne pour le Climat, the first climate citizens assembly, they were working with randomly generated phone numbers. So they randomly generated phone numbers 250,000 and called these people and invited them to take part. So different possibilities there.
More questions? Yes. Your hand if you can use the...
I would like to ask questions. I want to better understand the advantage of doing it in a random way, because I can understand the lack of interest, but when you talk about expertise, or when you, for example, you can randomly, let's say the public doesn't know many stuff, and that's kind of a circle. Like if you want to try and make a positive and important change that at the moment it's not happening, so also educational wise, maybe there are problems. For example, if we talk about climate topics, so the majority of the people doesn't really know all the different aspects of climate, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you asked about the advantage of having a randomly selected group. Well, it's not better than other forms of participation, like self-selected forms of participation where everyone can go to. It's different, and it has different qualities. The narrative that you generate by bringing together a randomly selected group of people makes these people not speak for someone or for an interest or for an interest group, but it just brings them together as they are. And this is a special quality that allows to have like a proxy discourse. So the idea behind mini publics is that if you bring together such a randomly selected group, you saw the definition of Dahl before. He didn't talk of random selection. So it's just one way to operationalize that. He said, bring together a demographically representative group. So you can also go about in a different way to reach that. But what that group can do, and that's the theory behind mini publics, is produce the same or nearly the same results as a discourse of the entire population would bring about. So that's like a very theoretical point of departure. It stems from Jürgen Habermas, a German philosopher, who said it's deliberation which has to be at the core of democracy. And deliberation means searching for the best argument. And the best argument can only be found when there is no barriers that inhibit any people from enter the public discourse. But of course, in Germany, we are 80 million people. You can't bring 80 million people in a room to deliberate. It would take forever. And of course, not everyone would be capable of bringing his or her ideas, his or her views in the same way.
Daniel, I want to sort of kind of continue Ben's question, because I think it's an important one, and emphasize what I understand Ben is saying is that, okay, say the Israeli public isn't really aware about climate change, so it doesn't have the knowledge even.
Okay.
So what kind of learning processes have you seen go on in citizens' assemblies and in citizens' councils? Do people actually learn enough to make educated decisions?
Yeah. Well, as I said, in the case here in Tmmpelhof-Schönberg, we didn't have any experts bringing in their views at the first stage, just because the question didn't require that. The second case that I will be talking about in a minute, on the federal level, of course, there was like input of experts or classical experts, and also of opinion holders from different positions. And it's really important to have that, just to give the randomly selected people the opportunity to make the best guess of which argument they buy which argument they think is the more convincing one.
But if we stay on the local level,
yes,
and the program of 1.5 days, and what if the question would be different? And for example, I don't know, something about transportation, closing the center of the city for transportation. You need knowledge to discuss
Absolutely.
it. So would you say that you need more time, meaning 1.5 days won't do, and you need 2.5 days, for example? For example,
you might actually go further and say you might need an entirely different process for it. So it's important to note that a citizens' council in this way is just one tool or one application of the tool, like a hammer. But you can't make every problem a nail that you can hit with this hammer. But it's important that you design such participatory processes in a way that form follows function. But your example is really good, because there has been many publics that have been used for very tangible questions. How can we reshape public space, streets and stuff like that? And you would then integrate different methods in the process to visualize the situation. You would also, of course, bring in maybe architects or city planners who just show what's possible, what's not possible. And that way you show what's the room for maneuver where the citizens will be deliberating about the best solution.
More questions? From
I
this
think we have to move on.
What?
I think we have to move on.
We have to move on. I have just one short question, which may not be short, but I want to give you time, and you don't have to answer it all. What actually happened, and what was the result in Tmpplehof? What impacts have you seen from the 7 councils that were set up?
Yeah, very good question. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Of course, what's really remarkable in the first stage was that all 7 sub-districts had more or less the same topics that were important to them. And they didn't know from each other and what the results were. So and the main topics were the district government is not doing a good job communicating what they're doing. So some participants of the Citizens Council didn't even know that there was something like a district government, and what are possible ways of participating there. And the second topic, of course, was traffic, and in Berlin it always is, and public spaces. And another thing is things for young people, where people can get together, not just exclusively for young people, but just community work. They said we lack community work and want to see more happening in that realm. And now your question, so what happened? The district mayor installed a new branch in her administration. So she installed a team of people who are now dealing with issues of participation and with issues of being in dialogue with the people, and and a couple of smaller things around certain public spaces. People said we need more toilets or more park benches in this or that area. They have also been grasped up already. But it's for each of the 7 sub-districts, and that's maybe something that's not so, or that didn't went so well. They had like a report of 12 to 13 or 12 to 15 pages outlining what was been taken on and what's not been taken on, and that's really important. But nevertheless, maybe not so intuitively to grasp for the participants.
Okay. We've got a question here about the education process of the facilitators from Betsy. You want to say something to that? And then maybe go on to your slide, your second part.
Yeah. I can't see the question. Is it in the chat? Do we have time to hear more about the education process of the facilitators? Well, it's actually a certified method. So it's been developed by a guy called Jim Ruff in the US. And there is a couple of people in Germany, I think just 2 or 3, who are able to give trainings to people, so that they know how to do a dynamic facilitation style facilitation. But this is really unique. I mean, the style, you saw it, is a rather orthodox method. So it leaves rather little room for maneuver for personal style. Yeah, but that also requires the special training for these facilitators. Okay. Yeah, we might continue discussing about this, but I will continue with my slides and with the second story that I brought. I promised to be quicker on this one. Hang on. So we should be on again. Yeah, as I told you, I want to talk about the mini public on the national level that we had in 2019. It was called the Bürgerrat Demokratie, and it was indeed the first national citizens assembly that we had in Germany. Yeah, this is the official logo. And yeah, let me tell you again the story, how it came about. In the currently sitting German government opened up an unprecedented window of opportunity for democratic innovation in Germany in their coalition agreement, which was signed in 2018. So here you can read this quote from the coalition agreement. They announced that they would constitute an expert commission tasked with elaborating recommendations of whether and how our established parliamentarian representative democracy could be complemented by additional means of civic participation and direct democracy. So this is really unprecedented, because thus far, like since the end of World War II, there has been no possibility on the federal level to have any adjustments on our democratic systems when it comes to participation and direct democracy. So when we at the IASS became aware of this announcement in 2018, we've been just excited, but also disappointed at the same time, because there was nothing happening according to this pledge. It's the only, well, German governments love to have expert commissions when there is a problem that is too large to get a quick answer. And all the expert commissions that were announced in Germany in 2018 were actually set up despite this one. So nothing actually happened there. But nevertheless, this political window of opportunity for systematic change was there now. And yeah, so we, we teamed up with a couple of other actors out there who said who are advocating for more and more creative ways of doing democracy, and said, let's make this expert commission a participatory process itself, to really make sure that it will come up with ideas for constituting a stronger democracy. And yeah, we teamed up with a couple of actors, I said already, to do something that was inspired by the Irish case, the Irish Citizens Assembly on the constitution that they had in 2016-17, I think. And yeah, this idea to have a citizens assembly instead of an expert commission, yeah, would just open up the whole idea and make ensure that results are really connected to what people think, because it's not the democracy of experts and democratic changes are not up just to experts, but to the entire citizenry. So one of these actors that we work together, Mehr Demokratie e.V., which is, in English, the Association for More Democracy. They've been tired after a while for waiting to see anything happen according to this pledge that was made in the coalition agreement. And they said, let's just do it because the window of opportunity is open. And they said, within just less than half a year, they collected €1.5 million from private donors to conduct a citizens assembly that is almost identical to the ideas that we also had with having a citizens assembly. And what they did, they called it Bürgerrat Demokratie, so citizens assembly for democracy. And they tasked, they brought together 160 citizens from all over Germany and tasked this group of randomly selected citizens with exactly the same question as it was, or as it would have been given to this expert commission that never came into action. And this is how the process looked. How it looked like in phase 1. Hang on, this is a German slide. I've got it in English here. In phase 1, they had regional conferences where self-selected citizens, so this was have been open processes, self-selected citizens and interested politicians could engage there and give their inputs for the nationwide citizens assembly that was supposed to happen in the next step. In the next phase, in phase 2, they convened these 160 randomly selected citizens from all over the country for 2 weekends. And on these 2 weekends, citizens examined the input of the regional conferences and of experts, of different experts, and compiled a citizens report on the question at hand. Again, a couple of impressions here. How it looked when those people were in the room. They also had like an art happening in front of the German Bundestag, where they formed like this, this figure, democracy for future, with people standing on it, and here you see the handing over of the recommendations of the Citizens Assembly to the president of the German Bundestag, so the German Parliament, which was phase 3. They handed over this report in a public event to the president of the Bundestag and members of parliament. And it was a great success for them to actually have Wolfgang Schäuble, the president of the Bundestag, to take on these results together with members of all factions of parliament. And afterwards in phase 4, which is basically ongoing still, Parliament considered the ideas that have been brought up in the citizens report, and one outcome that we could witness already at the beginning of this year was that we had a second National Citizens Assembly in January and February. And this time, 160 citizens again came together and deliberated online because of the pandemic about Germany's role in the world. And it's really special because that topic, this time for the first time, was assigned by the Council of Elders of Parliament, which is a committee that unites all factions of Parliament, opposition as well as governing parties. And they said, we will have this question, what is Germany's role in the world, or what should it be? Give it to this Citizens Assembly. Yes, and this is how it looked like. It was a huge thing with 160 people, online. They worked for more than 50 hours, spread over I think 4 weekends and a couple of Wednesdays as well, over 4 or 5 weeks. And it entailed a lot of technology, but it worked. And they came up with really, interesting results. So, I think that this Bürgerrat Demokratie and the subsequent Bürgerrat on Germany's role in the world made really nice use of political windows of opportunity to actually make democratic innovations happen on our federal level. Yes. And here I will close again, and I'm happy to take your questions on this, on our National Citizens Assembly. Any questions?
Yeah. Who's up for a question? I understand, Daniel, that there's going to be a citizens' assembly on climate change in the near future.
Yeah, right. Good question. That's going to be the third one we have on the federal level. But here, well, it's a bit complicated again, because maybe you know, in 4 or 5 months we will have elections in Germany, parliament elections, and this citizens assembly is actually supposed to happen, just right now, like in the next couple of weeks. It should start, and it's organized entirely by NGOs. So the connection to parliament is not really there. It wasn't mandated, so to say, by parliament. And so I'm actually excited if that one will also have some impact. But the people who organize it, they work hard to convince people from the Green Party, who are most likely to be among the next government, and already have their commitment to take it serious, was what the randomly selected citizens will come up with when it comes to climate change mitigation.
So isn't that kind of a difficulty, because citizens assembly usually, to be successful, needs to have a mandate before it goes into action. And here is saying they're doing a citizens assembly by citizens without having government commitment to what will happen. So how's that going to work? Yeah,
that's why I'm also a bit critical about it, even though our institute is also involved in it. Otvin Ren, our scientific director, is coordinating the scientific board that gives that brings in all the experts that will be talking to the randomly selected citizens. But it's really a very important point, David. Citizens assemblies or citizens councils, in my view, only make sense if you really know what you are doing and how it's going to be embedded within the political and administrative structures, because otherwise it might really be a really frustrating endeavor if you don't manage to have any impact or effect with it.
I would like to ask about the knowledge that the people need to know about the issue, like climate change. And I believe that who is bringing the knowledge and which knowledge and how you bring it is a big power. Like, is it the government? Is it NGOs? Like, how do you decide what to bring to the committee to even learn?
Yes. Yeah, it's really important. You need like a trusted actor who is organizing the whole thing. You can, yeah, in Germany, we don't have like a really good setup yet, like institutional wise, who that trusted actor can be. Mehr Demokratie e.V., that association that organized the first two citizens' assemblies, they are sort of a trusted actor, but they got into that role primarily by being as transparent as they can be, like where money comes from for the process, how they selected experts, and of course how they selected the citizens. All the process, it has to be really, really transparent. And for the online citizens assembly that we had this year, it was possible to follow live online on YouTube the sessions of the citizens, and also and see every input that was given by an expert or any person that was invited to give an input. So that's one way to do it. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
How about the public opinion on the citizens' assemblies that went on in Germany? First, did the media cover the assemblies? Second, did you check what the public thinks about these assemblies and their legitimacy to consult the government and so on?
Yeah, media coverage was huge, especially for the second one. Mehr Demokratie, once again, the organizing body, they worked really hard to put it on the agenda. For the first one, Bürgerrat Demokratie, like the first citizen assembly, they even managed to get into the evening news, which is almost impossible in Germany. So there was widespread media coverage. Of course, I'm not aware of like a survey, a large-scale survey that asked people if they heard about it and what they think about it. But media coverage was really comprehensive and also widespread. And it also happened, or a lot of media coverage happened quite some time after the actual citizen assembly, because the participants of the citizens assemblies, or those 160 people, a lot of them got really, really active in talking to their mayor and talking to politicians on the local level, talking to journalists on the local level, and telling them their story, that they got this crazy letter of invitation to participate in this thing, and tell them about what they did there. So that worked really, really nice. But it's not been on the same scale if you compare it to France, where they had this citizens assembly on climate with the direct mandate from President Macron, just because it's not been there in Germany. As I told you.
More questions. Last chance for questions. שאלות אחרות. אפשר גם בעברית ולתרגם.
Otherwise,
I have one question.
Yes.
You didn't speak about the opposition to the programs or the assemblies that you were while the process when it was going on, and if you had opposition, and
we didn't hear very clear.
You're asking about opposition
to the process of creating an assembly. Because here in Israel, we're on the verge of having a dictatorship, and I don't know if an assembly can work in that environment.
Yeah, it's really funny that this opposition to the entire idea to have an assembly is not or has not really been there. Like as I told you, the second one on the national level. Was actually initiated by all factions, by a committee of all factions of the German parliament, which is really, really unusual. It's really hard to have, like we have very far right-wing parties in parliament and extremely left-wing as well, but they agreed together on a question and also agreed together on having this trial, trying to experiment with democracy. And that's remarkable. Nevertheless, of course, there are people who say, well, is this really a good idea or not? But it's somewhat still under the radar because the Citizens' Assembly, and that's once again important to note, is not making any decisions. It is just a mean of fostering a debate about an important public topic. And bringing this debate to a level where arguments count and not just positions. And so most people I'm aware of see this use of the tool and think it's a good idea to have a try.
Thank you.
Okay. But maybe one addition, because on the local level, it's you of course also have opposition, and it's especially the elected councils. So those people who got in office by election, and they say they are often afraid that a randomly selected group of citizens will take away their power, and so it involves a lot of work to talk to them and explain them what it actually is about, and that it's not taking anything away, but it's helping them to make their work better, having more or better informed decision-making processes.
If I may ask a question, if you have any experience working with minorities, maybe refugees, the inclusion of indigenous cultures and communities on a multicultural level?
Well, that's also a really important point because I said earlier, it's hard to really reach some groups of people to participate. I said to get 15 to 20 people together, or 12 to 15 in Tmepelhof-Schönenberg, we needed to have letters out to 500 people. And of course, because it's voluntarily if people participate or not, certain groups tend to drop out, and you don't get them in these councils, which is a pity. And which is also why, for example, on this national case, they've been working with stratified sampling. So they had random selection of much larger group, and we're having like 5 categories or 5 indicators that are important to them, which entailed not only sex and age, but also like regional, where people came from and their education. And the 5th one, their status of employment. So that's the way you can do it. You can bring in more indicators and select from a larger group of selected people those that you want to bring in. But that's a ongoing discussion and a very lively discussion. Which goal you want to have? There's also other cases I'm aware of where they said we're just selecting like maybe 30 people if we want to bring 15 people together, and we do everything we can to make it possible for these people to join. So you go there, you tell them about it, you give them compensation for if they can't work, you take care of their children, and so on and so on. And that's the other way you can try to improve. But of course, you can also have like a side event where you bring together a marginalized group. Or I'm also aware of cases where you had a question that is just relevant for young people. Then you just select among young people from the public register. Or I also saw one case where the question was especially relevant for mothers. So they've just been selecting mothers for that. I mean, you could also have like a larger group of people working for it, but you can play around. Citizen selection is just one like factor that you can change according to your needs, and that's what really makes this form of participation so interesting, because you can adjust it just to what you want this process to bring about.
Usually we speak in terms of inclusiveness and wanting to bring people together. So having separate sessions, it's a bit
that's
challenging in that respect. Yeah, good. There's some very interesting work done in Trier, by the way, if you want. I'm involved in a project in Trier that brings together communities, if you want.
Very nice. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, it's great.
Well, I think we're about winding down in time.
Yeah, David, I have one last slide where I just have like a couple of, maybe key learnings from these German cases that I want to share, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Okay. So can you see this once again? Yeah. So yeah, I just tried to sum it up what I've been telling you guys. What is important when setting up such a citizens assembly or a citizens council? It's a couple of points, probably much more than what I've got on the slides. But first of all, you need to be aware of capabilities and limitations of mini publics and of special ways of operationalizing a mini public, like for example, in the Vorarlberg model or in the model that was applied on the German national level. Be aware just of what it can do and what it can't. Then next one, of course, is this form follows function aspect. The process design must fit the purpose of the whole participatory endeavor. So, and not the other way around. We had a bit of that issue in Tempelhof-Schönberg, because here, that group of ladies, they saw the model Citizens Council first and said, we want to have it here. And this is actually, well, not how it should be, but nevertheless, it opened up a window of opportunity once again to have the mayor trying out that process. And of course, what happened in the end was different from other cases of citizens' councils elsewhere. Yeah, then a third point, integration in political and administrative structures is absolutely key to be impactful, and commitment of those in power has to be secured beforehand. Yeah, just for illustration, once again, that circle, that process circle. Then fourth point, transparency and trust is key to create procedural legitimacy, especially if a tool like a citizens council or a citizens assembly is not institutionalized yet. And last one, it's really, really important where the question comes from, what it is, who poses it, and whether it's a real question or whether it's just a question that has already been decided and just wants to be, wants to get more support from the public by using this process. So that's just a couple last thoughts, and also my contact details. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to stay in touch, and really excited what will happen in Israel, what you guys might launch there. Thank you very much.
Daniel, I want to thank you so much for being with us and for giving us a lot of food for thought and inspiration and models. And this is what we in our team dreamed would happen. We wanted to have a bigger discussion. I want to thank everyone who's come. Toda rabba lachem shebatem v'ishtataftem. I think you've given us certain directions to look at. I personally, and I'm sure many of the people sitting here, we get kind of despaired looking at our democracy here in Israel. With our fourth election, maybe the fifth one coming along. And what I take from your talk is there is a lot of stuff we can do. There are a lot of methods and tools that we can try out and experiment with. And really it is an experimentation in order to put something right in our ballpark here in Israel. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do it. And I want to say a few words in Hebrew to what the next steps are. אנחנו באמת מתכוונים לעשות את זה בישראל, ואנחנו מאוד שמחים שחלק ניכר מהאנשים שנרשמו גם הביאו רצון להמשיך גם בלמידה וגם בעשייה ביחד, ואנחנו נשאר איתכם בקשר, ואנחנו נשלח לכם גם חומרים. Daniel, you sent a couple of articles. I will forward them on to the participants here, as well as your contact details. והמפגש הבא של למידה שלנו יתרחש בעוד כחודש, ב5 למאי, ואני אראה מהו, כדי שאתם תביאו סקרנות להיות איתנו. חבר בתוך היוזמה שלנו, איפה זה הלך? חבר שאיתנו בצוות, והוא יספר, הוא יעשה מה שהוא טוען, הפעם ראשונה שהוא עושה את זה, הוא יעשה לנו קצת קונטקסט היסטורי על השימוש במודלים האלה בישראל, ובהקשר הגלובלי. אתה רוצה להגיד כמה מילים על השיח הזה, רונן?
אתה מייצג אותי נאמנה, דיוויד, אני לא צריך להוסיף. אבל כן, הרעיון הוא בעצם לתת מבט היסטורי וגם של מגמות אל העתיד על המתרחש בישראל.
גם כן סימבולי באיזשהו אופן. You know, Daniel, that it's our Holocaust night. Tonight is the Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So we're full of symbolic gestures right now for democracy and hope for a better future.
Yeah, maybe just last couple of words. I had the chance to be in Israel once when I was back in school. We had this beautiful student exchange, and I was so impressed by Yad Vashem. It's still on my mind, this incredible place, and being there with students from Israel. Yeah, in thoughts with you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. I think Ron Hodds raised his hand. He might want to say something. Ron, רצית להגיד משהו? Maybe it was just a sign of...
נשמח להגיד משהו.
Okay.
היי, שומעים אותי?
Yep.
My name is Ron Hod, I'm from קריית שמונה.
Hey.
I want to say that I have a lot of things to say about the idea of public, of the matter that we are talking about, especially if you're looking back to the civil revolution in the year of 2012, like something like 10 years ago. I met here a lot of people here in Kachmona during this revolution, this civil revolution, and I think we can share ideas from there. Experience of people that take 10 years ago. What was the main idea or the main experience that I learned from that is the importance of direct democracy, of like taking citizens in here in Kachmona and all the area, and bring them the chance to talk each other without instruments, without media or something like that. Just talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Ron. And I invite you, אתה מוזמן בחום, להצטרף ליוזמה.
Okay, thank you.
Mosh, thanks for coming. To everyone, bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Daniel.
ביי, תודה רבה.
Thank you very much, Daniel. תודה לכולם.
תודה.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Daniel.
Bye-bye.
תודה רבה.
תודה רבה.
Cool.
Thank you, Daniel.